Hi, welcome or welcome back to Books and Bocadillos. My name is Maria Andrea, and I have been trying to have conversations with you, but not always posting them. Um, so I don't know. I guess I've been in like an just overall slump. I have been making videos, but then I maybe am having like a perfectionism, self-criticism kind of phase to where then I think like, no, I'm not ready to post that. Maybe I need to give that a think. Maybe I need to pause on that and maybe overthinking what I'm doing and saying. So this has been a conversation that I've been meaning to have, and it kind of clicked in my head this weekend when I was sending a message to my friends in the Win reading group that Gareth from the channel Books, Songs, and Other Magic is hosting. I was trying to catch up and just let them know that I have been reading Le Guin, but just late to the party as it's been. And I mentioned to them in that message that I am an emotional reader. And when I heard myself say that, I think maybe it was the first time that I just said it so matter of factly. I think I've always kind of known that I'm an emotional reader. But I just kind of like really embraced that about myself when I was talking about my thoughts on what we've been reading with Le Guin. And so I want to talk about what does it mean to be an emotional reader, and can you relate? I think that maybe we all bring our emotions and we are all emotional to a degree, but how emotional are we? Are you? Or am I in particular? So I just thought I'd pin down a few characteristics. This is probably not all the characteristics of an emotional reader, but just maybe some symptoms that you might be an emotional reader. If you, one, you find yourself connecting with a character, and of course, writers hope that their readers will connect with their characters, and not every character connects with us quite the same way. But I find myself often trying to connect with the characters. And I think the books that I enjoy the most are the ones where I have found a connecting piece to the characters. They are either characters that I relate to, or I see myself through, or I think sometimes I think, wow, I would be friends with them. Or um, sometimes you just are drawn to a particular trait that a character has that maybe you admire or you think is inspiring or interesting. And so I just feel like the books that I enjoy are books where I find a piece of like a port of entry, a port of connection. I think like Wuthering Heights, for example, I have more to say about Wuthering Heights, but I think that that's a book that's so difficult for me because there's like nobody in that book that I really like. I still think it's a great book, and maybe in a future video I can talk more at length about it, but succinctly, it's a book that I just love to hate. And I love it. I think it's a wonderful book. It is an amazing book, Wuthering Heights is, but I just don't like any of the characters, and I think I just love to hate it. Um, but there's no connection with any of the characters, so yeah, I find myself looking for that connection. A book that recently I connected with that I could share is The World in Half by Cristina Enriquez. This was on the book list for the Books and Bocadillos book list. I read it in the month of March and I enjoyed it. And what I enjoyed the most was finding ways to connect with the main character and her journey as she went in search of her father and forged these new friendships in Panama. And um, as she was also anticipating the passing of her mother. Um, and that was such a big part of the book is on the one hand, she's grieving like the anticipated grief of her mother passing because her mother is ill, and this is not a spoiler, it's just something you know from the beginning. Her mom is ill, and she discovers letters, and she goes in search of her father because she realizes that what she thought she knew about her father wasn't quite the truth. So she goes in search of her father in Panama, and I found that really heartfelt, and I connected with that. Next, you might be an emotional reader if you feel seen by an author, or you see yourself as part of a larger community. Like maybe the author creates this world that just speaks to you or that draws you right in and you feel seen. I felt seen by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I felt like the target audience by Sylvia Moreno Garcia in Untamed Shore. I didn't identify with the character in Untamed Shore. This is a thriller, and I want to talk more about this novel soon because I spent so much time thinking about this novel. And I have no one to talk to about it because I don't think anybody's read it. Anybody that I know has read it. So no one around me is interested in having a conversation about it at this time. But I enjoyed it so much. I did talk to one of my friends about it because I met with my friend who came down to visit, and I was listening to the audiobook as I was going to meet with her. And I think I told her and I can think like we were at SPI, and if she's watching, she knows who she is. We were at SPI together, and I was telling her about um, me reading this book and how there's this celebrity name drop in the book, and I just saw myself like I was like Sylvia Moreno Garcia is writing for me. I'm the target audience for this novel, and I love that. I love it when you know something like a small Easter egg that maybe would mean absolutely nothing to anybody else, but you are in like this inside joke with the author, and you both like I was laughing. That was so funny. This is so funny, and I love seeing the author's sense of humor. And I saw Sylvia Moreno Garcia's sense of humor in this novel, and I just adored it so much. And I felt seen, and I felt like this book is for me. So that's an emotional experience with the book. You might be an emotional reader if finding words to if it what you're reading is like finding words to describe an emotional experience. So sometimes books speak to us. Like today, I was listening to the audiobook for A Prayer for Owen Meany. I am um, very behind in this reading project. It started in the month of May. They extended it a week into June. They're already starting to talk about this reading experience, and I'm still in chapter 3 or 4. I am going to push myself to get this read by the end of the week so I can chime in. But I was listening to the audiobook, and there was something that John Irving wrote. There's a piece of dialogue in that novel that struck me as like this book was written about in the time of the era of the Vietnam War. And there's dialogue about the war in Vietnam. And that dialogue gave me language for what I feel, how I feel in today's time with the politics of the day and the war in Iran. And I was so grateful. I just like, it struck me and I took it in, and I was so grateful to have language like, yes, thank you, John Irving. Thank you. wish more people would see that and would say things like that. And yeah, so John Irving, wow, really gave me words and really connected with me emotionally through A Prayer for Owen Meany. Okay. You are an emotional reader if you find yourself reconnecting with your inner child when you're reading. So there have been books that bring connection to my inner child, experiences that connect with my inner child. I think that um, middle grade does that quite well for me, and I enjoy reading middle grade. I also enjoy YA books for that reason, because I find myself reconnecting with parts of me that I don't think about very often, or maybe that, you, they're like layers of you, and you get to unfold some of those layers. So a book that comes to mind is The Last Cuentista by Donna Higuera Barba, I think. That's like the first book that comes to mind that really helped me connect with my inner child recently in the last few years. But yeah, I enjoy children's books and I enjoy picture books because I think there are always opportunities to reconnect with my childhood self. And I enjoy reading to my nephew because I feel like when I get to read aloud with him and to him, we read books that help me connect to him, but also bring out the inner child. So that, those are emotional experiences with books. You might be an emotional reader if the book that you're reading evokes a memory you had forgotten. This hit me so powerfully in January when, with the Pinedo Project, we read Eden Glassy by Melissa Lukashenko. Oh my goodness. That novel undid me. Like, it gave me, it like opened up vaults in my memories that I had not even like thought of, that I had forgotten. And so it really hit me on an emotional level. It's a great book. I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it the most because I had such an emotional connection and such an emotional response to that novel. The next one is okay. Also, in terms of evoking a memory, sometimes creating new memories. So when you're reading a book and then you can tie yourself to, like I mentioned earlier, I was reading Untamed Shore by Sylvia Moreno Garcia as I was driving to the beach. And so now every time I drive through a certain neighborhood at SPI, it takes me back to, I was in this little neighborhood when I was listening to the audiobook of Untamed Shore. And then you might be an emotional reader if you have an emotional response to a book. So I mentioned Eating Glassy by Melissa Lukashenko. It also could mean shutting down. So an emotional response, yeah, it could be like throwing the book across the room. It could be crying. It could be reacting emotionally, feeling scared, needing to turn the lights on, um, calling your mom or your bestie. Um, but it could also mean shutting down. It could also mean unplugging. It could mean DNFing even. So I had an emotional response to Wuthering Heights. I was doing the March on the Moors earlier this year with Melinda, and I was trying to reread Wuthering Heights for like the third time in my life. And I had an emotional response to Heathcliff. I just could not. I didn't go back to the group to say anything because I felt like maybe I was having a unique experience, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I feel like it was just me having this emotional response to Heathcliff. But I was just done with authoritarians and men who are like, no, like ruthless and like no, like I just could not with Heathcliff. I have enough drama to deal with in politically, and it's just the timing, the politics, the social stressors, the timing of it all. Like I did not want the Heathcliff energy in my life, and so I had to put it away. I have thought of an idea for Wuthering Heights, so I'm gonna kind of like leave that to myself for now, but I'm gonna revisit. I'm gonna finish Wuthering Heights when I can get back into this dealing with Heathcliff. And then I'll go from there. But I have an idea that might make rereading Wuthering Heights just a lot more fun in the future because I do want to continue to read it because again, I love to hate this book. Next, you might be an emotional reader if what you're reading is causing you to have deep thoughts on life, love, and friendship. Okay, so Le Guin. Le Guin has me like I think that book is a book for anthropologists and philosophers. Le Guin's writing is so incredible. The stuff she writes is like I mean, it almost feels like tried to say that she's was so advanced for her time um in her writing, but I think she's just so inventive, but she also it feels like she knows she has a grasp on humanity. Like she understands humans and human behavior and she has the imagination to like take this take this behavior and then put it in a different world. And I just feel like there's so many thoughts on life, love, friendship, um, relationships, betrayal, war, and power, power dynamics, um, personal narratives, like who gets to tell what stories and how do you tell your story. All of that, I just feel like she, history, colonization, yeah, Ursula K. Le Guin. I've like I was telling the group that The Left Hand of Darkness was a book text that really hit me like a religious text would, and it made me feel like I needed to slow down. And it's definitely a book I want to reread because I feel like there's so much in it. Like it's so deep and philosophical. Um, there's so many others. So I don't have it here, do I? Yeah. Natalie Diaz has her first poetry collection was When My Brother Was an Aztec. I have been reading this poetry collection, and you're gonna see me talk more about this soon. I think soonish, but yeah, I've been reading this collection When My Brother Was an Aztec by Natalie Diaz, and there's just so much in here that has been also um causing for like deep thoughts on family and relationships and life and love and all the things. Okay, you might also be an emotional reader if what you're reading causes you to discover something new. I'm trying to think. Discovering something new. What can I tell you about this? Um, I'm trying to think of something that I've read recently that helped me to discover something new. Well, actually, not like really, really recently, but last year, I read Amy Nasuka Matati's book, Bite by Bite. And that is not fiction, that's nonfiction, and I learned something new. And oftentimes I think I gravitate towards nonfiction for learning something new, but I really want to push myself to talk about fiction in this video. Um, okay, so The Distant Marvels by Chantal Acevedo. I'm looking at the books that are pending to be reviewed on my stack here. I That's a book that I'm pending to review, and that was a book that was about discovering something new. I did not know Cuban history, so I felt like I learned a lot. And I think that when you open your mind to learn new things and you see kind of like the nuance of things, of relationships, of even just people, I think that book had a lot of complexity and sadness to it, and strife and strenuous relationships, like mother-daughter conflicts. All of that just felt really, really challenging in this book. And it's, as I'm thinking about it, it's bringing up an emotional response. So yes, I think that book, The Distant Marvels by Chantal Acevedo, a very well written book. And definitely for me, it was like discovering something new in terms of history, but also storytelling. Um, Next, you might be an emotional reader if you have a physical response. So I mentioned this, like an emotional response, but in this particular prompt or symptom, it would be a physical response, like throwing a book, like hugging a book, like deciding I'm going to display this book on my shelf because I want the whole world to know that I love this book. Or you maybe write a review about it, and so you have to post it on your socials. That's kind of a physical, because you're doing something to like physically display the book. So I've only thrown a book across the room once, and that was, I hate to say it, but it was um a book by Marisa de los Santos. I really wanted to love that book, and I was so angry. And so even books that make you angry, like you know you're an emotional reader when you allow a book to mess with your head and your emotions to the point where they make you so angry you have to throw it. Um, or you scream at it, or you yell at the character, making, doing whatever thing. So, what was the last book I hugged? I know I recently hugged a book. I think it was this one, wasn't it? I think I gave this book a hug in like a video. This was definitely a hug of a book. Like, I love this book. I read this with my friends at the Pinedo Project, the true story of Raja the Gullible and his mother, his amazing mother. Um, I really liked reading a story about mother and son. And wow, what a read. Just absolutely loved this book. And then 10, your reading changes because of this book. So an emotional response was changing your reading habits. Maybe you slow down. Maybe you read something you don't typically read because of this book. This book inspires you to go in a direction you've never gone before. So for me, I mentioned The Left Hand of Darkness really forced me to slow down. Like, there's no way you can read. I don't think that there's any way that I can read that. I don't say you, because people might be able to like super fast speed read that book. But for me, it was like I needed to slow down and take my time with it, and I just felt it like in my in my body, I felt the need to just slow down. Um, Reading something you don't typically read. So I'm thinking about Claudia Pinedo, um, Time of Time of the Flies. I think it's Time of the Flies. In that book, I think that book was. I think it's maybe my most favorite Claudia Pinedo book. I think it might very well be my favorite. And that book um, pushed me in a direction to read ancient myths. So I think that there was like some mention or reference to Euripides, and some of us went in that direction and, picked up Euripides. But I really liked that book. Had so many like touch points, so many points of inspiration that it just prompted you to go in a different direction that maybe you weren't expecting to go. Ancient lit is not somewhere that I go very often. Do have a special love for Beowulf, but other than that, it's not something that I gravitate towards very, very often. But that book just prompted me to, because I was connecting so much with the characters and the story and the author having this connection or tying this story to this other piece of work was really like, I must go that way. So I appreciated Galia Pinedo having so many different. It was like a redrawn, or yeah, like the redrawn adventure or choose your own adventure books, where Galia Pinedo had such a like platter of points of inspiration for this novel that you could go in so many directions with it. It was just such a great experience. And voila, these books have changed you. And these books have changed me. And they continue to do so. And this is why I'm here on BookTube. And this is why I'm here with you today. Because, I am an emotional reader. And I think I've struggled with that in buddy reads and groups. Because I feel like I'm probably one of the most emotional readers out there. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, I wish I just could bring more of like a cooler head and be more objective reader and have more to say on like structure and be just more well versed on like literary devices. But I come to my books with just an open heart, and I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I look for connection with everybody, even if it's people in fictional worlds. And I'm just always looking for just ways to connect and learn more about myself and learn more about the world and learn more about others. And I think that's why I love books. So that's it. I hope that you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here with me, and thank you for not giving up on me and my channel. I hope to get back into a swing of things. So hope to see you again soon. Hasta la próxima.